Animesh, I'm glad that you said yes to our interview, and we had a little chat up front to clear a few things. And I'm always keen to understand what drives a person to do the things they do. But this is something that we discover throughout the episode. So maybe you can give us a short intro who you are and what you do, and why I think you are the perfect guest here on my podcast. And then we dive into I think dive is something that came up through ChatGPT. Normally, people would not use dive, right? And then going back into your history and your story and unfolding everything that might can bring us to the conclusion where we are today.
First of all, thank you for doing this. I think your podcast is something that is very popular and I listen to it regularly. And as a result, I'm very honored to be a guest on this podcast today.
Thanks.
Um, Robotics in general and AI, to me, was not accidental, I would say, but not as deliberate as people might think. It was not something that I was doing when I was 5 years old, for sure. Uh, it is very interesting that when I was in high school, I wanted to do interesting things that required physical sort of nature of the work. I actually did not want to study computer science. I have actively avoided getting a computer science degree whenever it was possible. So at the time of getting into university, I picked studying mechatronics, which was as close to robotics as you can get, meaning mechanics and electrical rather than anything else. So they teach you controls, robotics, and everything. That felt exciting at the time, about 20 years ago, a little less than 20 years ago. Um, it was very clear to me, not because what the size of the market or what the scope and everything was. I think it was genuinely out of interest. I just did not want to work in a cubicle.
Mm, makes sense.
That was the primary motivation at the time. I grew up in India. I knew so many people who used to work in IT. This is early 2000s and mid 2000s. I had many people, extended family, friends, who were working for a variety of sort of Silicon Valley firms or IT firms in India. And I was very certain I don't know what I want to do with my career. I do not want to work in a cubicle. That was literally how I was making decisions at the time. I do not come from a family of people who are very technical. I have a very large family, uh, and I'm the only one who decided to go to sort of an engineering school, even. Everyone else almost always either straight to some sort of family business or entrepreneurship directly. So I did not have a lot of what you would call traditional guidance. I had a lot of support, I want to be very clear, but I did not have a lot of traditional guidance that told me what I should do ahead of time. So a lot of the learning was a sort of reinforcement, and as a result, slightly later than usual. I did not learn to code until halfway through the undergrad because I didn't sort of think that was the thing to do. Uh, I was much more into sports rather than technical stuff in high school. Uh, and then one interesting thing that happened, which was when I was in university, there was this thing that happened in 2007 and 8, which was called the DARPA Urban Challenge. Of course, it was an obscure thing from a broad perspective, but it was an interesting thing that happened. I followed tech, it showed up, and it was kind of a challenge. So, a funny story is CMU runs these summer scholar programs, which are basically internship programs for university students who are not at CMU. So in my third year of university, I was supposed to go there and work on this sort of autonomous car. This is back in 2008, 2009. And I was very excited, beyond excited. And then a month before I was supposed to leave, or actually about 2.5, 3 weeks before I was supposed to leave, I get this email which says, we can't actually take you in because you don't have the required expertise or you don't come from a standard computer science background. And that was the chip on the shoulder. So funny thing, I decide that my undergraduate thesis in India with someone who doesn't like is not an expert in computer vision or even robotics for that matter. We decide that we will build an autonomous vehicle that can like a full-size person, not just like a small RC car, like a full-size thing. Uh, as my bachelor's thesis project. Sometimes naivety helps. I was completely naive. I did not know like where to start. And all on about a $280 budget. Uh,
What was the what was
so
the what was the expected time frame for that or timeline?
about a year.
Hmm.
Basically, you start at the end of summer of junior year, and then you end in your final year, like fourth year, right? So I basically dropped everything. This is all I worked on for that year. So I taught myself everything that I could and I needed to. It was a very sort of um, very entrepreneurial way of doing things rather than tech first doing things. Like we did not have the money, so I welded the car together myself. We had help, of course. I don't want to say I was just the only person. This was a team of 3 or 4 people. Uh, we became very ingenious about how to use as fewer actuators as possible, as few sensors as possible. We did not have onboard compute, so I did not have a laptop at the time actually. So I borrowed a laptop from a friend as the onboard compute system, and a couple of web cameras and a small GPS and a small radar actually. At the time, LiDAR was very expensive. So I put near field radar on it. The long story short was we were able to build a rickshaw, a three-wheel thing, because it only required two actuators rather than more, uh, and a small sort of system, and build something simple. Of course, I wouldn't say it was an autonomous car. It was basically a simple closed source device where, like, if you had a map, you can go from A to B, avoiding obstacles along the way.
Hmm.
Right? But on a car in a street kind of thing, like it would avoid parked cars and it would avoid people, but only work in the day. That was my first experience building these sort of autonomous systems. That got me hooked enough that I want to study grad school, like go on for grad school. So I got these sort of
But
job
wait a second.
offers.
Wait a second. Do you have still some footage from this period?
I think definitely there are pictures. I don't know if there are videos that have survived 15 years ago for sure, but there's definitely pictures of that. They are on my publications page all at the bottom, where I think we used to call it Auto Tricks. The project was called Auto Tricks, Tricks being the tricycle,
I
and
will have a look at it. I'm keen to see.
absolutely.
Yes.
I can try to find pictures for it for sure. And you could sit on it, you could put a laptop on it. The system was fairly simple actually. And we were naive enough, as I said, right? No guidance. We tried to publish it somewhere. We didn't even know where to publish or what the right places were. So we just like Google IEEE robotics, whatever showed up is where we submitted. And genuinely, we were very green at the time. But I think that was useful, and that led me to come to the US for grad studies. When I came to the grad school, I got into operations research, actually, IEOR. And uh, as soon as I got to grad school, I wanted to talk to people who were doing robotics. Turned out that everyone who was doing interesting robotics or algorithms at the time, 15 years ago, was mostly in CS. Everyone else. So it was like a bifurcation. Either you are like building things or you are building algorithms. And I was fascinated by the idea of algorithms, but I did not like CS. So I was,
Sorry to interrupt. The because for you now, looking back, it seems very casual and seamlessly, but going from India to the US is a big step. I mean, for the majority of people, I guess.
oh,
Uh,
yes, absolutely.
Applying, do I get in? Do I not get in? The money is always a big topic, but cultural differences is a big topic. So if you don't mind, if we could push the pause button
Absolutely.
for a second and you can walk me through how these ideas come together, then is there an opportunity for me? How do we, uh, how do we make this idea reality? Yeah, maybe you can share a bit.
Oh, absolutely. Going to grad school was interesting. interesting to me, but I was never planning to go to grad school, because if you're planning to go to grad school, you don't think about it like in your final year. You actually are thinking about it in at least third year, because you have to plan for things to happen. I was not planning to go to grad school to study MS or PhD. Actually, I was very certain I wanted to be an MBA. I had asked money, saved up some money to take GMAT. GMAT is the required test if you have to take if you're applying for MBA schools, compared to, let's say, if you are going to go to a technical grad school where you take GRE. Literally, what happened was, after I started this project, after I was denied that I can go to the summer scholars program, I completely switched everything in last year. It was very last moment. It was not like I had planned and this was my plan all along. My plan was to actually go to Harvard to get an MBA and be a consultant. Like, that was the dream job. I actually had job offers from KPMG when I was in undergrad as a consultant. So that I was not looking for technical jobs. It was very sort of this project defined what I wanted to do. So I switched. I applied to a bunch of places with the money that I have. It was very limited, so I could only apply, if I remember correctly, like 5 or 6 places. And being completely, let's say, unguided, my my view of the world was US news rankings. So what is the best place that studies industrial engineering and operations research? Georgia Tech, rank 1. That is where we apply. Right? Rank 2, Michigan. MIT and Stanford were not in the list. I did not apply. Right? So I literally take the list, apply to top 6 places. I apply to Europe. I got into TU Munich, actually, with there used to be a program called Erasmus Mundus. Basically offers these sort of full ride scholarships. And I got into TU Munich to study computer vision and robotics at the time. But because I did not have any connections in Germany, surprisingly, I said no to Germany, despite the fact that they were offering full ride. It was just, I felt that I didn't speak German, and I did not know anyone in the country. It will probably be much harder. So going to an English-speaking country would be better. Again, a lot of it is by gut and instinct rather than everything being very objective or methodical. So when I was picking universities, as a international graduate student, you don't get to visit universities because it's just too expensive to visit. I literally picked based on ranking, which was Georgia Tech. I come to Georgia Tech. Within the first semester, I realized this is not the program I need to be, because I want to be studying robotics. So I talked to people and I asked, can I reapply? And they said that the program that you are in is a terminal master's program. You have to reapply to be a PhD student. So I asked, can I get my tuition back? This is second week of getting in Georgia Tech, and they said not for this semester. You can withdraw after the end of it. So against the run of things, I actually applied to grad school again, but this time around only to 4 places, 5 places actually. Within the first year. Basically, I landed in Georgia Tech in August, didn't like it, not because Georgia Tech was bad. I think it's just like it was not the best department and interest fit kind of thing. And then I applied again, asking people where should I apply to. So the obvious places, again, this time around was another list of rankings, AI. So it used to be Stanford, CMU, MIT. And if I remember correctly, it used to be Georgia Tech, of course. Yeah, that was the 4th school. I applied to Georgia Tech because there were some people here. And then one of my advisors said, you should also apply to this university called Berkeley. At the time, I did not know what Berkeley was. Like, okay, sure. Right. And I ended up applying. I was very lucky, actually, that my advisor took a shot on me. I don't think someone like me would make it in today's climate with like where people need to be so experienced, have done a lot of research, and have a portfolio even to come in. I was just sort of flailing around. I think I was technically decent. It was just that it was not clean. I did not have a lot of portfolio things to show up because I'd not done a lot. Uh, I've done these sort of independent projects. That's about it. But Ken Goldberg at Berkeley took a shot at me. Henry Christensen at Georgia Tech said you should talk to him. He recommended me, and then I ended up at Berkeley. Um, and it was, I would say, some amount of luck, and that Ken saw what others didn't, and that was the only school I got in for PhD, except for Georgia Tech. I could have stayed, uh, but because Ken was doing robotics, Ken was this sort of super cool rock star at the time. Of course, he is still, but at the time, it's like you can do machine learning, you can do robotics, you can do filmmaking, you can do social. Like that is the person. I packed my bags from Georgia Tech. I wrap up my master's actually within a year, 2 semesters. Uh, go to Berkeley, and go to Ken. And I think I remember distinctly. Um, I land in San Francisco. I drop my bags off uh, and go to the lab meeting within the same evening. So I land at 2 p.m., drop my bags off, and I think there was a lab meeting at 4 or 5 p.m. And I go there to see him. I was excited enough to like not wait. And and within my first meeting to Ken, I said my sole goal of doing a PhD is to be a faculty at the time. It's like this felt like the coolest job. Like you could be a rock star. I had seen Henry Christensen, who is a rock star in himself. Then I got to work with Ken Goldberg, and I've had very very good luck, I would say, over the course of my career, that the mentors I've worked with are such uh, luminaries, or have gone on to become such luminaries. So I find myself very fortunate that I got these opportunities. And then I hope that at least some of their lessons have stuck over the last decade and a half uh, of that process. And then since then, it became, I think since then, things are sort of history, meaning I got to Berkeley. The first 4 or 5 years was interesting, did a lot of interesting things. And then one thing led to another. But I do want to say the career that I've taken was not preordained. I had a compass, which is basically saying do interesting things with interesting people. That has been the general rule of thumb. Some interesting problems that I would like to solve. But beyond that, I don't try to micromanage on a day-to-day basis of like, uh, I think it's opportunities come and sometimes you have to make these things. But it's not about planning 5 years out. It's just very hard. So you do interesting things. The only thing I would say anyone who is listening is uh, sort of chase capability and interestingness. Everything else sort of falls in place beyond that.
Um, I'm doing this also for people who are interested in these kind of situations or being in this same kind of situations. You said a few times now you've been very lucky, and when opportunities arises. But from my experience, and I had a lot of people on the podcast, so I would like to get your opinion on this. Very humble people would say there was a lot of luck involved, right? But very often, especially when someone's taking a shot on you, they see something. Very often they see work ethic, they see intelligence, whatever that might be. They see potential. They see someone who is interested and curious. So because luck, you can be lucky, right? There's a lottery, but and I'm asking this because the other second part you said is you don't have a 5-year plan, at least not on a micromanaging level. But for me, I think having an idea where to go and what to do, and it can be led by curiosity or what I like to do. But um, please, maybe you can verify or clarify that it was not just luck. There was a lot of hard work involved, and people should not rely on luck and make things happen for themselves.
Oh, yeah, I think I should say this. When I use the word luck, perhaps to interpret this is there are aspects of the problem that most people don't know, and I'm very certain that it's nothing specific just to my path. Everyone has a story that is unique and exciting. All I can say is my own data point. In many times during my career, whether it was ending undergrad, picking grad school versus the jobs I had, ending masters, again picking grad school versus the jobs I had, uh, I believe grit is uh, of the highest quality, the highest virtue, even more than genius, according to me. Uh, so if you have a compass and grit, you can go very far. Uh, Grit sometimes means putting your head down and doing things despite temptation, despite like there is no FOMO in a sense, right? When I was in grad school, we were studying robotics, not because truly because robotics was cool to study, not because we were very certain that robotics is not you get a job in. There were no jobs in robotics. When you graduated robotics grad school, when I was studying grad school, it was very clear you will not do robotics. That's very rare. You will do other stuff. Like that, what you're doing in PhD has no, it may not be directly relevant at all to what you do in graduate school, beyond graduate school. So it happened multiple times. I was being recruited by a startup, uh, middle of the PhD. I said no at the time. It's like, no, I need to stick around. So I think that I would say I would attribute to myself, meaning I stuck around for better or worse, uh, to things that I liked to do with the people I wanted to be with. Whether it was financially good decision or not, in the moment of all of these decisions will feel very sort of financially imprudent. But I felt that I am having fun. I think this is where family support came in a lot, where the family was not pushing me to do a particular thing or asking me to be of a particular career. They literally said, "You do you, and if you fail, we are here." I think
Mm.
that privilege is something that I'm very well aware of. Of course, my family didn't come from a very well-to-do background, but even then they said it's okay. Um, I think very early on we were told, think of plan B. Uh, if you have some plan B, you don't have to like make plan B and prepare for it, but like know what the worst case scenario is. Like I remember when I was in grad school, we all knew the worst case scenario is being a software engineer. You can be a software engineer at tier one company, tier two company, or tier three company. It's okay, but you'll still be make do. Like you'll not be completely sort of out of work on food stamps. So the idea was it's okay. So I can go be a software engineer today, or I can go be a software engineer 5 years later. It's okay, right? So let me have fun right now. That is how I optimized opportunities. When I graduated grad school, it was also very, I think a lot of my jobs and opportunities have always been very sort of story like. I was not planning, I wanted to be faculty. I applied for a few jobs. I got a few interviews, didn't get the jobs. I got a job offer at Uber. Uh, Uber was very big and burgeoning at the time. This is 2015, 2016. One job offer was go to India and lead their data science team, and another one was being in San Francisco. So I picked San Francisco. I accepted the job offer. Everything was fine, signed and done deal. Actually, they had signed. They got me the H-1B. I was supposed to start Monday, kind of thing, and today is Friday, uh, kind of setup. And along the way, during the summer, accidentally, Feifei Lee was very popular on Twitter. I was not. Feifei was very popular. I'd followed her along. I'd seen her once or twice when she visited Berkeley. I, of course, was not working on computer vision. Uh, when I was done, everything was done and dusted. It was clear that I was going to Uber. I accidentally sent her a message. She said that we were interested in looking for postdocs. I said, Feifei, I don't know you, you don't know me. So this is not an email. This is a Twitter DM. uh, uh, we don't know each other. I followed you on Twitter. Um, we accidentally met during your visits at Berkeley. I would be interested in potentially doing a postdoc. And this is me completely sort of not planned. I was hanging out at, I remember very distinctly, at, I think, if I remember, French embassy. waiting for my visa. I was applying for it, and I was literally at the French embassy waiting for the interview, just twiddling on the phone. And I sent to her, and this is where I would say it's luck. I don't know. Feifei replied same day. Before I was back home the same day, my interview was scheduled the day after. And by the end of the next day, I had an offer, and I was like, yeah, done. Right? I am not going to Uber. I tell the people at Uber on Friday that I'm not coming. They had sent me all of this equipment, and it's like, I'm sorry, guys. I'm very certain Uber will be around in 2 years. uh, this deep learning thing is happening, and I want to try it. Uh, if and when I went to postdoc, my feeling was exactly like this. This is very cool new thing that is coming along. Roboticists were not doing deep learning at the time. They were sort of toddling in. People had just started doing this 2015, 2016. Some people were happening. So we said, okay, if this is happening, I need to be in core machine learning. And I had not published until core machine learning up until that point at all, actually. So I said my postdoc, I said to my postdoc, I always do this. I actually wrote in a diary and I said, I give myself 24 months to be a postdoc. If I get a job that I want in academia, cool. Otherwise, this will give me a new set of skills that'll like improve my plan B. So earlier it was software engineer, now I'll be a machine learning engineer. uh,
If you
and
don't
that's how
mind,
it,
um,
absolutely.
I'm sorry. The you 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 you're talking about this so easily, and I'm tend to be an overthinker, right? So I put myself out there to get rid of this and numb myself because being on camera, being so active on social media, you do need because there's a lot of people in my DMs, some comments, and it helps me to not overthink too much. And but you're talking about these kind of things so easily, so maybe you can give us a look behind the scenes, what's in you. Because I mean, not only is this an awesome opportunity to talk to one of those, I think she was on the cover, right? On the very right-hand side, almost. I mean, there's some new versions of the Time magazine cover. I'm talking here for people who don't know what I'm talking about, the architecture of AI. And she's actually one of those who is, I mean, actually an architect. All the others are entrepreneurs and whatever. So here you have an awesome opportunity. Come and basically luck because I mean it's not luck because you sent the DM, right? So this is what I'm saying. It's not luck. You do something, and then luck is happening. But still, having an offer and even having the equipment. I know a lot of people would have just, damn, I said yes, and I have the equipment, and I don't want to make a fuss out of it. And so I'm interested in those kind of. Oh, my camera is smart. Does it work backwards as well? Let's see. Can I? Yeah, I can.
Oh.
Um, it's that kind of points that make hopefully my podcast interesting. So what's going on in you in giving you the strength and the guts to say, uh, hi, this is me. I said, yeah, we're gonna see us on Monday, but this is not gonna happen. Tell us, how was that?
I think two things. There are two traits I've come to realize, and now I know what exactly those traits are. At least in me, I can't say this for everyone. One, I have a thick skin, so I don't feel bad sending cold messages. It's like it's okay, right? The worst that can happen is you won't reply, but that's just you ignoring me. That's completely fine. Uh, Even worse, you might think slightly worse of me, but we don't know each other anyway, so it's okay. Right. So that's putting myself out there is something that I don't think I ever worried about. Coming from where I came from, I was never sort of like top of the line, the cream of the crop. Like I never was like, oh, top institutions everywhere. I was always sort of like uh, the misfit. So this was something that I always did. And two, I think, was what I call risk seeking, calculated risks, but risk seeking. Uh, my argument with myself is always what I call opportunity cost. Right? If I'm young, there's not much to lose, but there's a lot more to gain. Then I should always like bat at it. Like I remember when I was in grad school, when I used to go back home in India, people were like taking jobs. My friends were getting married. And I always said, like, this is just so fun and interesting. And if there is like a 1% chance that what I do something ends up being meaningful, it's a very likely thing that whatever I'll do will be completely useless. But even if there's a 1% chance, then I owe it to myself, given that very few people will even get this opportunity, right? Most people will not even get this opportunity to do this. So that has always been the metric of like choosing between opportunities rather than financial success. It has been mostly doing interesting things that have low likelihoods of success, as long as, of course, you have the privilege of your bases being covered, like you're being fed and you have a roof over your head. Once that is covered, then I think you can take risks, and that was a risk, right? So you're turning down what I remember this because I told my dad the offer that I received from Uber was my annual compensation at Uber at the time was more than my dad's annual my net worth of our family. So coming from India, it was a very big deal. But I said, it's okay, right? It's okay. I can leave all of this and I can come back and I'll be fine. It's like none of this will matter, right? So that's how I optimized for interestingness. I've been lucky that it worked out. I want to say that there have been many opportunities and many gambles that have not worked out. It will not work out when you are taking risk. 100% success rate is not guaranteed. But if you don't play, you're definitely not going to win.
I mean, thanks for sharing this insight. Because I think a lot of people, and myself included, experience this kind of situation where you struggle. Should I do this? Should I do that? And I also, I think you can see this in data and studies that people who are more risk seeking, I was about to say non-risk adversing, is that the correct English word? Um, so not being afraid and not, as you said, seeing there's opportunity and realizing there's also the opportunity of not of a failure, right? But realizing that failure is something that you decide, right? As long as there's not a lot of debt that you own to somebody, or there will be other consequences of that. Um, it is rewarding, but you do need to be that kind of person because um, not everyone. It's not for everyone, and but
That part,
it's.
that part I completely agree. Even within my family, I've seen it's a personality trait. I used to think it was just me, but I think I came to the conclusion I have siblings, I have my wife and her siblings, and I came to realization that some of it is perhaps just a personality trait, meaning I think naive optimism helps in ability to take risks, right? And the other thing that helps is lowering fear of failure, but also how you define success, right? To me,
And
I've
failure.
always, yeah, exactly. Success and failure, meaning, right? To me, I maintain a journal actually myself. This is a personal journal. So if this is an exercise I've done ever since I think I was in high school or probably earlier. Whenever I'm faced with important decisions in life, I write things down uh, for two things. One, I will never second guess myself in the future. Right? Whether it turns out well or bad, it's mostly just because at any given point, you are not making wrong decisions. You are making the best decisions you can with the information you have. You do not know how the world is going to play out. The uncertainty is inherent in the system. So 3 years down the road, you should not say that I made the wrong decision. You made the best decisions always. It's just that it didn't work out. It's okay. I think that is one. And two, I also wrote down at every stage of life what would be success. When I was a grad student, we were getting paid, if I remember correctly, $24,000 a year. To me, that was sufficient. So I said, if I get paid 60,000 per year, that is sufficient. Like anything beyond that is a bonus. Right? So that is my, like what you would call, this is what I'm optimizing for. If I can get to 60,000, then everything else is covered. Like my health, travel, food, money, housing is covered. And beyond that, I can just do fun.
True.
Postdoc pays 66. Cool. Right? So the loss function is meet the minimum and then don't bother about sort of optimizing anything else. Yeah, so I think establishing these best practices with myself helps me keep honest, right? So because it's always very easy to change the goalpost when you grow up. Oh, now 60,000 is not enough. And I've come to the conclusion, actually, 15 years later, that number is still true, give or take.
Give or take. Well, thanks for sharing this story because I think there's a lot of value and learning lessons here, and I can sense that there's a sort of like you being comfortable with yourself and peace with yourself. And I talked to a few friends with my journey and their journey, and I mean, you sleep better. You sleep better when you do this. There were a few things that you mentioned. One of the things was I'm not looking back and regretting what I've done, or was it the right or wrong decision? So that means spending more time in the present. Also, like this is my baseline 60K. Everything that is beyond that, fine, that is bonus, right? But not moving it, not moving it. Now it needs to be 80. Now it needs to be 120. So this, but also the defining failure and success. So there's a few lessons in what you were talking about, and I'm using this podcast also to teach myself because I didn't have any mentors that were telling me the things that are important, right? And listening to you guys, you and all the other guests on the podcast, it's helping me reinforcing the things that are important because I see the struggle I mean, it's a two-way street. Oh, and how do you say this? It's a gift, but it's also a burden. For example, the 60K is good, but I tend to do more, and because of this trait of I would more, this is now where I am today because I had this for the last 10, 15, 20 years. So, but on the other side, when is enough, right? It can be, if it's 120, it can be 200. It can be 300, and so I think I'm envying you. I don't know if that is the correct word, or being jealous of you having this kind of state of mind, accepting where you are, what you do, and that you're fine with that, but giving you the opportunity to do more. So yeah. Anyways.
I think it's a simple philosophy. I believe you should have a goal, like of
Mhm.
what you want to do. This goal can be moving. It's not money, actually. I don't believe money can or should be a goal. Uh, Money is a surrogate to a different goal that you really are after. No one is chasing money, actually, according to me. At least to me, they're chasing something else. Money is just a surrogate. Uh, uh,
Safety,
yeah,
opportunities again. Yeah.
I've I've come to the conclusion. This is my conclusion. I'm not saying I'm right, but I'm saying this is my view. It's surprisingly like a game. You define a goal. Like I want to solve cancer, that can be a goal. Elon's is like I want to go to Mars, interplanetary species. I want to teach kids in rural America, or I want to teach kids. Like it can be anything. Or I want to be a beach bum. I want to I want to open a coffee barista. Whatever makes you happy is a goal, right? And according to me, there are 5 types of resources. This is why I call it a game. Money is one type of resource. Time is another type of resource. Skill, willingness, and people. At times, you can swap one for the other, right? If you don't have a skill, but you have time, you can gain skill, so on and so forth. You have money, you can hire people, but it's not 100%. You can't just like say there's only one resource that you own and everything else you don't have, and it'll still work out. It doesn't. There are many rich people who are not doing meaningful stuff, uh, and there are many skilled people who are not doing other stuff. So it's a balance. So once you decide what you want, then you decide what is the resource you need, and then you work to get those resources. I think that's the way to play the game. So if the goal is to solve cancer, it's not going to happen in 50K. You got to make basic stuff. uh, so I think that is how I see storing money. I have this joke with my family. Is like saying I will go to the gas station or the petrol station, as it's said in Germany or in India, and I'll fill tankers of fuel, if you will, but then bring them home and stay home, right?
Yeah.
Uh, you get as much you want to get you where you're going. Uh, just optimizing for money is the equivalent of buying fuel and bringing it home and putting it in your garage.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some people who would argue what you could do with that. You can improve the situation at home. You can put the home somewhere else where it's more safe or more comfortable living. But I get
There
what
is
you're trying to say.
a perspective, but my view is I view the game in terms of resources. If I need the resource that will unlock something for me, then yes, I do. If not, then it's optimizing for the wrong thing. And it can be a changing thing across time in life.
Maybe this is a good bridge to bring us to the last part of the podcast where we talk about what's your goal? What is your goal? What are you working on? What are you keen to work on in the next few years? What are I mean, you were talking about Elon and going to Mars. What is or curing cancer? What are you in for? What is your game? What are you interested in? Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing and what is what about your work. I'm interested.
I think over the last 10 years or so, I've got very excited about this idea of the next generation in computing. Uh, I believe robots are the computers of tomorrow. Or specifically, you and I probably got exposed to computing through possibly a desktop. At least for me, that was the case.
Yeah.
I am arguing that my child, who is 2 years old today, will remember a robot in the same way I remember a desktop. This would be the first sort of exposure to computing that she'll have. And that is exciting to me. Like, it is a world that I want to create in a manner that is positive. I don't believe robots are labor replacement tools. I think that's a very reductionist and a pessimist view of the world. In the same way, computers created so much value for not obvious reasons. In the same way, new types of careers emerged where mobile computing enabled happened. Right? Being a YouTuber or a TikTok creator or an Instagram creator or an influencer was not a career choice even 12 years ago. Uh, so new mechanisms of computing will enable completely and radically new things that people are not thinking. People are just thinking of the work that we can do today with robots. And I think that's a very minimalistic view of the world. That, I think, is what I'm very excited about these days. And to that end, we like to think of robots for people, where applications will be built by some Michelangelo who's right now in high school. Right? The coolest thing in robotics will not be done by people who are getting their PhDs today, but very, very likely like someone who is ridiculously creative and is currently in high school or middle school today. Right? And all of us are basically creating the substrate and the tooling for someone like that to do it. When you think of computers today and creating content, you don't think of low-level RAM or control on the robot or hard disks or network cards, right? You just think what content you're creating, and you're just like living in a cognitive abstraction that everything just happens. In robotics, we're not there yet at all. I think, and I'm betting that in 10 to 15 years, that is where we are going to be, where we'll have this new era of computers that can move around. I think that the way I think about this is the computer used to be on the desk, went in your pocket, is now growing arms and legs.
The part of it might not be someone who is be doing a PhD today, but someone who might be in high school or middle school. A lot of startups that I'm talking to, or their pitch is always, not always, but a lot of people using the pitch of democratizing robotics. So we have this no code initiative, talking and learning and teaching robots without being able to code, without being able to write any line, right? And AI is being, yeah, an accelerator here, but also let's say we're talking now about robotics, but let's put this, for example, in especially the creativity part, right? Making movies, pictures, not having the access to an expensive camera or expensive team with light and microphone. All those things are art forms on their own, right? So we do will see a shift in the industry. We do will see job losses, and some art forms being vanishing, right? This has been going on throughout history, but also it gives us opportunity to. Some people have an imagination they cannot apply, they cannot put it into the real world, and now we are building these kind of tools where they can, right? It will be interesting to see, as you said, handing people the tools that will enable more people to do things we haven't thought about this yet, and they weren't possible until now, right? One of my favorite. It's not my quote from my brother. One of his favorite quotes is, "Everyone said this is impossible to do, and then someone came who didn't know it was impossible and just did it." Right. So this is coming back to the part where you said you were very naive. I can do this on my bachelor thesis, an autonomous car, a rickshaw. So and somehow it worked out, I guess.
Yeah, I think maybe that sort of optimism is what you want to live with a right set of values. I do believe that the power of computing is very big. Computing as a tool, by the way, is very, very new in the grand scheme of things. If you really think about this, if you read history, they say that the printing press was invented in 1300s, perfected by 1350 or whatever, and then in 50 years, we had books. Right? 50-year periods, 500 years ago, are written in a paragraph. That is the point. All of computing is what 50 years ago. Right? 1975, we did not have computers, at least
Hmm.
not still. So, in the grand scheme of things, computing is just very nascent. We feel that we have reached the zenith, but it's rarely. It is very hard for me to believe that is the case. And when someone tells me that the humankind will be relegated to non-employment or unemployment, all I can say is I think we are seriously underestimating how creative people are. Uh, I think in every era of technology, people want to be creative, people want to be distinct and different. Right? Had that not been the case, we will be eating packaged Soylent and same gray t-shirts and blue jeans for everyone in the world, right? We want our homes to look different. We have individuality, and whenever there's an opportunity, since time immemorial, that has been the case. So I think I'm very positive about the next, let's say, 20 to 50 years in computing, and I'm very lucky, for lack of a better word, that I get to be even a player in this game. Uh, so in the long run of things, I don't know, but I get to enjoy this while this is both important and hopefully play some small part in creating this revolution. It'll be fun, if nothing else. It'll be fun.
I mean, I like this kind of optimism, and I'm talking to a lot of founders, right? And they have all this sense of optimism, because otherwise you would ask yourself, why standing up, why doing things in the first place when there's a huge possibility that it will not work out, and there will be a lot of chaos coming upon us, right? And we haven't dealt with anything that was like what is possibly happening. But yeah, one of the reasons why I'm in this industry as well is maybe being able to make a difference, maybe being able to give it a spin in the right direction. Maybe you can finish our conversation today with telling me what you guys do in your lab. What is the current state of your work, and how do you see the situation around you?
Absolutely. I think bringing back to things being grounded, uh, the research and the nature of research in robotics has dramatically changed in the last 5 years.
Mhm.
For better, I would say, because a lot of the problems which were purely hypothetical or very sort of far out there uh, are now within the realm of possible. A lot of the entities with a lot more focus, whether they are startups or large companies, are now working on these problems. So certain problems have what I would call not solved, but graduated academic settings. Uh, so there are more than one type of entities you can go to and work on robotics, different aspects of the problem, right? You could work on open-ended stuff in academia. You can work on more sort of large-scale research at one of the larger companies, or you could work on more product layers at a startup, or some combination of these things. So I think it's a very exciting time. What we do, at least on the academic side of things, uh, are a very small set of problems. One way we like to think about what are the technical problems such that the programming paradigm for robotics achieves the abstraction we have achieved in computing. So what if a programmer is interacting with a robot? How can we build a system which can do, you can only specify the how, the what, and the how the robot does it. You don't have to like teach the robot how to do it. You teach the robot what to do because that is what I care about. If I care about pouring water from this thing into a cup, then I really should be only thinking about this. I don't need to be thinking about your knee joint angles or your shoulder angles. Why should I? Right. So I think to that end, we are working on world models. We are working on a lot of reinforcement learning ideas because we believe every agent should teach it to themselves. Right. You can't always copy it from one to others. Uh, they can still be foundation models, but in a very different flavor. Uh, we also think about uh, how to be data and power and compute efficient, because eventually if you're going to have all of these machines, they're not all going to be cloud connected or cannot be cloud connected all the time. Uh, so there will be some combination of on device and on cloud kind of setup. Uh, on the system side, we do believe, or I've come to believe, that a lot of the unlock or step functions happen when you enable ease of development. Creating good systems surprisingly has uh, very uh, high impact or high second order effects. This may not all be interesting algorithmic work, but I find working in systems is even higher risk and higher reward. So we built about 5, 6 years ago, we bet on the idea that simulation was very important. We spent time. That project initiated in my lab went on to become something that NVIDIA now builds on, called ISEC Lab, which is now powering a lot of excitement. Definitely, a lot of locomotion is trained in that framework. Uh, Before that, we were building on teleoperation systems, which are now like in the vogue again. So now we always ask ourselves these questions. Okay, what is the thing that is bottlenecking someone who is not a roboticist working in this area, right? If you're a vision researcher or a graphics researcher, or even for that matter, a programming language or a HCI researcher, why are you not working in robotics? Because I feel this is the most important thing to work on. So then I need to open the door, build a bridge, make it so easy for you that it's sort of stupidly simple for running you running experiments and designing experiments. So I think thinking about what will it take to bring down the activation energy for someone who is not a domain expert to even work on the problems is the right way to think about this. And when we do this, and whenever we have done this, actually, even in the past, we have seen a ridiculous level of progress in a very short amount of time, right? The people who created foundation models of language were not traditionally natural language researchers.
Mm.
The people who created deep learning for computer vision were not traditionally computer vision researchers. And I think I'm quoting Jitendra Malik. here. Robotics is far too important to be left to just roboticists.
Which brings us back to something that you said earlier, that the people who will do the important stuff are not necessarily PhD people, and this means the creativity is not blocked by years and years of academic shaping, right? So, I mean, it's now a little bit of a hollow phrase, but thinking out of the box and thinking in ways you haven't thought of before, it requires people not coming from that same pool, right? Because otherwise you will just have an incremental improvement of things, or you're some sort of yeah, you have the ability to not think like everyone else in that pool, right?
It is
But
very, even for very smart people, it is very hard to think blank slate because it's kind of like there is a thinking process that is ingrained as a part of your training, if you will. So if you've trained with a particular line of thought, it is genuinely hard to a point where it's like it feels like personality change in a sense
mm,
to completely switch your mode of thinking. And I think this is why we, even more so, this is why we need to invite outsiders. Outsiders meaning the people who would not traditionally work on this because uh, the prerequisite for entering the field was so high that previously it took 5 years of just studying to make anything meaningful happen because there was so much background knowledge. And now we are basically abstracting all of that and saying, whoever you are, if you know something, you can come in and do something here. So I think this is why it's so exciting. I always say to my friends, the year is 1977 and the personal computer has yet to happen. This is where robotics is. Robotics is literally people have created some initial stuff. There is enterprise robots. There is no robot at scale for people's homes. And then I think in the next 5 years, we'll suddenly see this idea, this sort of boom that robots are everywhere. They're not very useful initially, but they're everywhere because they're cheap enough for people to just buy out of, if nothing else, for novelty. But then I think the percolation will happen because it's such a large technological change. It will not happen next year or the year after, but uh, it will be such a seismic shift that that will be very obvious when we look back in 15 to 20 years that that such a prediction was very hard to make.
yeah, I mean, I think this is the most pleasure is here for me and my hopefully my listeners as well. Like every episode, I think this was a great episode, and I can't I can't think of another better episode, right? And then there's a new person coming, giving it a new direction, a new idea, new input, and so thanks for going into this direction. This is you asked me before we had the podcast, what is the audience? And I said, yeah, there is a lot of engineers, there's a lot of people who are interested in tech, but this is a people's podcast. So there's other podcasts I can mention if people are interested in that I think they're very good, very technical. Robot Papers is one of them. So there's a few out there. Mava and Scott, they're having a podcast. They're very technical, and I love it. But this is here about showing the people behind the technology, behind the companies, behind the institutions, and to see their people, normal people, human beings. And yeah, I'm very happy that you gave us some insight in you. Oh yeah, I don't know how to say this in English, but give us an idea about who you are and what you do, and maybe being an inspiration for people who are not necessarily in robotics, but who are desperately needed in robotics to bring us to the next level. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It has been a wonderful and like my pleasure to chat with you.
Looking forward to because my plan is always to have an opportunity to see all the guests in real life at least at some point. So whenever I will be around or you'll be here, um, I will try to make it happen. Thank you so much for being here. Your day is still early, and my day is very late. So good night for me, and have a great day for you.
Indeed. Thank you very much.
Bye bye.